objective of thinker is to simplify task of developer to whatever extent possible. Now, in order to help developers so that their task of persistence management is reduced, they started thinking what problems are there which are being faced by people who are writing persistence logic. And first problem is they need to be good in both, right? They need to be good in OOPS and I mean to say Java or any other language, and they need to be good in databases also, right? So actually this skill is required for developers now. Second problem which was there here with JDBC was complexity of code. Code was complex, right? And how to resolve this complexity? If code is complex, your change management and maintenance also gets affected. Okay. Any bug which is detected, it may take some time to resolve it because bug may be there in query that you are writing, bug may be there in your prepared statement that you are using. And moreover, if you see object-oriented developers cannot have both. You say he should be good in queries as well as he should be good in object modeling also. Okay, which is getting a person or a talent of that mix is a bit difficult, right? So how to do something? What needs to be done in order to come up with a persistence logic management which can simplify development of persistence logic, not too much of writing of code. Okay, Sun Microsystem came up with concept of entity beans. Now here what they did, they said, fine, developers need not worry about persistence management. We will take care of persistence management, right? Developer need to work with objects. So you can say here they mapped objects with tables. And now developers will work on object and container does persistence in tables. Now developers will not bother about database, tables and all. He will work on object and container takes responsibility of persistence management, right? But if you see, there were issues with this. What issues were there? I'll discuss. See, in market you have so many app servers, right? Many app servers, and all app servers have their own way of persistence management, right? Now, so they follow J2E specification, but J2E has not binded developers not to have their own implementation, which can further improvise or improve management. So all app servers tried their level best to compete with each other, and they ended in what? Non-portable entity beans, right? So you say they gave two types of beans in specification. One is called as CMP, second is called as BMP. These are nothing but classes with some extra configuration. Now here CMP is container managed persistence. So you say this was declarative. You have to just ask your container to do the task. Second is being managed. Now here, developer was responsible for managing persistence logic. This was portable but complex because you will end up writing again huge code. Now this was simple because most of the things were declarative, but it was not portable. In other words, if I am writing CMP on an app server A, that CMP will not work on app server B, right? So we got an approach of simplicity, but it was not portable. And again, now we are going with BMP. It's complex because again, developer only have to do everything. So in order to resolve this problem, in order to get something which gives benefit of both, CMP B is nothing but it's a class of it. It's a class with a particular responsibility. So when I say container managed persistence, Bean, it's a class. In Java, everything is a class. So now here we need some way of getting both advantages. Like we want it to be simple and declarative in nature, as well as we want it to be portable. So that is what gave place for something called as ORM, right? It's called as object relational mapping. Now, ORM is lightweight. When we say lightweight, it means it can be used anywhere. And contains persistence management capabilities, right? So if you see, here, ORM actually was also a standard which whose objective was to provide lightweight and simplified persistence management capabilities, okay? So on basis of this ORM, actually there are now many products, ORM products. One is Hibernate, then you have Toplink from Oracle, then you have IPTs. You have many products which are there now in market. You have Eclipse Link. There are many products which are ORMs, right? So objective of all these products is to provide a lightweight persistence framework okay, with simplified persistence management. Whereas now developer's tasks will reduce. He will not need to worry about what tables are there, what is cardinality, what is normalization level, then think about queries, joins, inner join, outer join. Now, all that he need not do because he is going to get a simplified approach where he will be doing his task on objects, and these ORM frameworks will take responsibility of talking to database in database language, translating object-oriented calls into database calls. Is it clear what is objective of ORM? Amit, is it clear? Right. Now, we have to think that we are going to design this ORM layer in our application, right? The first thing is that we have to ask how to set up ORM, or you say persistence engine. Let me call it as persistence engine. No, internally it will contain ORM. Like this engine will be based on ORM principles. So, how to set up this persistence engine? See, almost all ORMs which we have specified here need to be configured using following units. Ashish, who is bothered about what you know? Like work need to be done, right? And this is coming basically because business is becoming complex. So if business is also complex and the way you code is also complex, it will be difficult, right? So development is becoming easier so that domain experts can learn it quickly and they be the developers. Right. How to set up persistency. I was talking about almost all these ORM frameworks comes with, or you say, need following elements. So you can say basically we are going to discuss what is contained in ORM, functional ORM. First, implementation tasks, right? This is actually nothing but installation of ORM in your project, and that you do by making sure that certain jar files are there which are part of your project. This is what is first important. If you are going with Hibernate, you have to take Hibernate jars. If you are going with Toppling, you have to take Toppling jars. Then comes step 2. Step 2 is POJO classes. Now, when I say POJO classes, you will have two type of POJOs. Now, one is entity POJO. Now, these entity POJOs are representatives of tables in your object model. For example, if you have a class, you have a table called customer table. In that, you will have what? You will create a POJO called as customer, and that POJO will have a representative of all columns which are there in table. Right? That is what you have to understand. Right? Fine. These are actually mapped to tables. Then comes third one. Fine. So what database I need to connect? Your persistence engine need to generate queries and everything on behalf of you, right? See, he'll also connect to database. You have to tell him that how he will connect, right? Second type of POJO is business POJO, which you will be using in Springs or service layer. One-to-one mapping with all tables. That depends on the grammar that you are going to use, Ashish. Once we'll start, you will see mapping because most of the time, 75% of time will be in mapping only. Then second type of POJO is business POJO. Second is entity POJO classes, which are mapped to tables. Third important ingredient here is, yes, it's a class. Plain, or you say pure old Java object, plain old Java object, which does not require anything extra to compile. It can compile in all versions of Java because you avoid taking anything which is specific in a particular version. Third is config metadata. Now this config metadata tells your engine about DB and also to customize environment. Right? Now, what is meaning of customizing environment? You will see. Just wait for a few minutes. Right? This is what is third important part, config metadata. Then comes fourth one. And fourth one is, I'll take here mapping metadata, where you will have mapping logic. What table, what class, what column of what table is mapped with what attribute of what class, all that you will specify here. Is it clear? These are four important ingredients, you say, which you will be using in order to set up your persistence. Our persistence framework that we are going to use is Hibernate. Hibernate is distributed, or you say it is pre-built in JBoss. Also comes with Spring 2.5.6. You can go and download Hibernate from its own site, hibernate.org, and use that Hibernate. In some or other way, those files need to be implemented or need to be present. Till here it's clear. Now, once your persistence engine is set, you need to write client, right? And client you will write using two different ways. One is proprietary API and second one is JPA, Java Persistence API. We will focus on it more in further sessions. Till here it's clear. These four are used in order to set up, and this is something which is used in order to access persistence layer. Till here it's clear. Shall we go and start now? Okay. So what we are going to do now, we are going to set up our persistence layer using Hibernate. For that, what I am going to do, I am going to take up JBoss, right? Because I will be using JBoss library, and once I will start with Spring, I will be using Spring library as well, right? So we'll just go, and you see I am adding JBoss here to my project, for which I need to move to Java EE perspective, because we are going to talk about server now. I am not using this server for any other reason. I am using this server only because all ZARs of Hibernate comes along with this server. So we need not fight for ZARs as of now. That fight we will do later. I'll just go and I'll configure Eclipse preferences. I'll go to servers, runtime environments. I'll go and click on add. Now instead of this, we'll take Tomcat does not comes with Tomcat you will not have Hibernate, but you can use any app server. I'm just using this JBoss in order to make library available, ZARs available. There is no other reason. If you're writing web component, you can definitely use any app server. Here I'm using JBoss just in order to avoid a bit of library fight. I'll take version 5, click on next. I'll take JRE, any one of these. Now I'll go to my JBoss. Okay, I'll show you. I'll go to Eclipse preferences. In your case, in case of Windows operating system, it will be there in Windows. I'll go to servers, select runtime environment, click on add. and here I will select JBoss. Click on next. Select JRE, and then I'll go and I'll take my JBoss file which I have installed. See, I have this. I'll select here, right? Click on finish. Click on OK. Amit, we installed Hibernate tools for plugins, which will help us in writing Hibernate. You need to download JBoss. I told you yesterday also, like when we were talking about what all software we need. Till it's clear, we just added a server environment in our workbench, right? You don't worry, means after adding, we are not going to host our application on server. We are just using that because it contains all required stars of Hibernate. Fine, let me start now. File, new, a simple Java project. Click on next, and I'll write here Hibernate setup sample 1. Click on next. Now be careful here. What I am going to libraries, add library, and I'll take here server runtime. Click on next, JBoss. This is what we added there. Click on finish. So I'm telling here that please use libraries of this also. And if you see, this contains Hibernate. This is the reason why I added. Otherwise, I have to fight with different guards because Hibernate again depends on certain guards. So all that we need to. Here it comes along with this, right? All Hibernate jars are already there in this. See, Hibernate Commons, Hibernate Core, Hibernate this, validator, everything is there. This is the reason why we took it. Only this is the reason. Otherwise, I'm not going to deploy my applications on server as of now. It's saying, do you want me to open in this? No. Because now if I go here, I have both libraries there. I need not fight for jars. Is it clear? First step. Amit, is it clear? Lavanya? Fine. Now let's go with step 2 now, because step 1 we have already done, right? That is making jars available. Step 2 is to go and create entity modules. See, I'm going and I'm creating. Right click, new class. I create a package. Let me say com dot entity. Give a name to it. Let us give some other name to it. What? Product. Click on finish. I don't need public static void name. I'll write int product ID string product name. I'm taking a simple one because first thing is we have to set up and we have to test. Now please remember, these classes are entity classes, and when you create entity classes you have to follow certain conventions. First convention is class must be public. This is what is first. Second convention is default constructor is must. Third important convention that you have to follow is follow proper naming convention for attributes and methods. Right? Class must be public, default constructor is must, follow proper naming convention. Then setter and getter must be there for each attribute. So these are some of the rules that you have to follow in order to call it as an entity class. Then what we'll go and we'll do source, generate, setter and getters. Select here both, click on OK. Now we have our entity Pojo and small entity Pojo also ready. Next is we have to go and create config metadata, and Amit, from here we are going to use the plugin. Right click, new, go to others, come to Hibernate, and now here you have Hibernate configuration file. Click on next. So this is actually a help to developers. Now please remember, Hibernate CFG.xml is the default name. You can change whatever name you want to give. Okay, let's not change, keep the default. And here you have to specify the properties. I told you that there are two types of properties that you have to specify in your config metadata. One is how it will connect to database. Second is customize the environment of your ORM. Right? That we will see later. Now if you see, I can just go and click on this. I have one connection profile, right? See, automatically these values will come. Is it clear? Now there are certain properties here which are specific to Hibernate. For example, dialect, database dialect. What do we mean by dialect? See, one of the objective of your persistence engine is to generate queries on behalf of you. Now there are so many databases available in market, and probably there are different standards of query statements also. Like you have SQL 92, you have ANSI SQL. You need to tell to your Hibernate that he need to generate queries using what dialect, what flavors, right? Our database that as of now we are using is MySQL. So we will like Hibernate to generate queries using MySQL convention. So I'll just go and select MySQL, click on finish. So these are some of the properties. We have just configured 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties. Password also we can add. If not from here, if you want to take advantage of this, you can just go here, connection properties, password. No password is there, so it's not required. Right? You can specify password if you have password for your database. Now there are certain Hibernate specific properties which I would like to discuss. First one is dialect. We have already seen. Then comes to SQL. For example, you want to see what actually SQL is generated, right? Then you have so many others. Just come to third one which we are going to use, because we'll test first and then you will proceed from there. Now HBM2 DTL.auto. So Hibernate comes along with a tool which automatically generates tables from your classes. And in order to enable that tool, you will have to go and make entry in your XML, right? For example, let me go and edit few things in source as well. Let's go here, property, name, and I'll take here HBM2 DTL.auto, And see, there are various options that you can set here. For example, I'll take update. Update will do what? It will go and see if table is already there, it will not do anything. If table is not there, it will create it. So apart from this, you have many other options. Like you can specify, instead of update, you can specify create. I'll show you here. This will be much better. You see, you have update that we have written there. You have validate, update, create drop. Create will create drop will create, and then it will drop it once sessions are over. Validate will validate whether tables and your class model is right or not. Update, it will validate. If table is not there, it will create it. This is what is responsibility of update. We are taking update here, right? This is how you will be working. So we have dialect, we have show SQL, and we have HBM2 DTL.auto. These three properties which are specific to Hibernate. As of now, let's be satisfied with these many only, because we have to go and we have to test it first. So Hibernate CFG.xml is ready, right? Next, mapping metadata. Now here I have taken update, so table will get created for product. Mapping metadata is used in order to map your object model with relational model, right? That's what we are going to do. Table in our case is not existing because we want table to be created by Hibernate itself. So quickly we'll go and we'll generate mapping. Objective is to test, please remember. So you may not get all details as of now. This is just in order to ensure that Hibernate is getting set up properly. I'm just selecting this. See. Next, it will generate a HBM file, Hibernate mapping file. Click on next, click on finish. So now if you see, you have your mapping file also ready. Go to source and see. As per default mapping file which is generated by your Hibernate, it says that product table is product. Let me write here. I'll proceed everything with basics. Then you have product ID, column name is product ID, generator class is assigned, meaning is developer need to provide the primary key value. It will not be automatically generated. If you want it to be automatically generated, you have to change here. You can use Ashish. Let's finish using one. So if you see, all these are different strategies of generating, right? Sequence. Now sequence is specific to database. For example, I can use sequence in Oracle, but I cannot use sequence in MySQL because it's not there. So it heavily depends on the dialect that you have selected. And then property name is the normal property, column name is product. And let's go and see. Everything is ready. Now we have to write client. And that client takes responsibility of invoking session to the database, but through Hibernate, not directly to database. We forgot one jar file which is required, that is MySQL. So I'll just go to properties and I'll add that jar also. I've added the jar, and now I'll go and I'll write client. Now for writing client, I'll be using Hibernate APIs. And in Hibernate API, we'll be using statements that will go and read Hibernate CFG.xml and create a session factory. You see, create a session factory. Using that session factory, we'll be invoking sessions. So when we create those session factory, all these properties are loaded. How to do it? We need to know API. For that, you have a class called as configuration. Please ensure that this configuration is from org.hibernate. This one, right? org.hibernate.cfg. I'll write here cfg equal to new configuration. This creates configuration object. If you see, this configuration objects have all methods. It has all methods here. Now we will like this configuration object to be configured with property values that you are passing in Hibernate CFG.xml here, and that you do by just going and making call to configure. See, please remember, if you will not make call to this configure, it will not read Hibernate CFG.xml. So though configuration object will be created, but it will be having no value. Right, now we are ready with configuration object. Let's go with second step. Second step is now we need session factory, and ensure that session factory is there here equal to cfg dot build session factory. If you remember prepared statement, internally we are using here a factory method that will take responsibility of building an instance of session factory, definitely populated with values which you have read using configure. Now from here onwards, we have to go and create session. Then if you remember, I gave one exercise, singleton pattern, and I did one exercise on factory pattern, right? So this build session factory is also nothing but it's a factory method which is there in configuration. So they are using that pattern in order to build. Now one session is there, you can go and start session. This we are writing just in order to test. So just go here and take session. Please ensure that session is also from org.hibernate. Provides you method. Open session. Right, and then close session. Not much. We are not doing any activity as of now. First, we will check whether tables are getting created or not, and then we will go and write one small logic, and then I'll ask you to test, because you have to set up your Hibernate project before you move further from here, right? I'll go and run it and wait for the errors. Terminated. Let's go and see. Connect. Now we'll go and we'll see the tables. Now product.hpm.xml. Now here you see com.entity.product. We'll go to Hibernate cfg.xml. One thing which we have not entered here is we have not told our session factory to load what mapping files, and that's what we have to do. In order to do that, we'll quickly go to mappings, click on add resource because we want to add file. There here, select this, click on OK, click on finish, click on save, and now go and run the test. You'll find the table getting created. So your cfg.xml must be aware about what mapping file or files you are going to load. Right. Let's go to our database, refresh it. You see here product batch 6 is created along with the columns, and it has made product ID as primary key because in mapping we have asked it. Is this clear? Ashish, Amit, Ajay. Fine. Now let me go and just write one statement which will help us to test whether queries are getting created by your ORM or not. For which we are going to create an instance of product E equal to new product, set it with the values, set product ID, let me take 100, E dot set product name, and I'll take here say laptop or something. Object is created. Now we'll go and we'll save it. All persistence methods are there with session object because he is going to submit. You can do nothing without starting a transaction. So we are just starting a transaction. Please remember this transaction also needs to be from Hibernate. You have started the transaction and then T dot commit. And now once you have met all requisite that transaction has started properly, session object is created, you can go and you can make call to the method which is provided to you by session in order to say. Now you see, for an object oriented developer, this is what? It's simple, right? We'll go and we'll run it. You see in console, query is generated and it is executed even. So we wrote what? Just one line, right? Session dot save. So simplification of logic. You can go and check out whether this data has gone to your table or not. 100 and laptop. Is this clear? So see, now you have have to configure this on your system before we move further from here. So for me, completing things is not that difficult. Like I can complete it in R itself. If the table are already created in DB, then how to map? Amit, if it is already there, you have mapping file, right? Specify name of the table here. Specify name of the column here instead of product ID, whatever name is there. Specify name of the column here, right? For example, if you already have a customer, that I'll tell you anyhow, after you test on your system, everything is running fine. We are going to focus on mapping only because this is mapping and object management. These two things are there that we are going to talk about. Okay, so what all things you need here? I am taking here JBoss version 5 because I need not fight much with that. Second, I have ensured that plugins are in my system. What plugins? Hibernate tools. All of you have that, right? I told you, I think, many times. Go to help, install new software is what is one option. Otherwise, best option is what? Eclipse Marketplace. And you can specify here tool of your choice. You all have done all this. Here I'll go and I'll write JBoss tools. Go because it is JBoss now who is maintaining Hibernate code also or standard also. We'll check for update and here you will get. In my case it is installed if you see. In your case you will get installed, just install what? Hibernate. Okay. If we are writing select on say product ID, how can we make sure the Hibernate is doing prepare only once and using execute for multiple select on? You mean to say what? Two phase of commit you are talking about prepare and commit, Ashish? Are you talking about that? See, like your database has sessions, no? Session cache. Similarly, Hibernate also has session cache. So what it does here is it starts the transaction and puts the data in session. And until and unless execute is not, you say commit is not executed, second level of commit is not done. Hibernate should avoid preparing query plan multiple times. It should do it once for preparing query. Right? Depends how you have asked Hibernate to prepare the plan. There are various strategies of query generation. And it heavily depends on caching management that you are doing. If you want queries to be cached, you have to have plan for it so that queries are not executed every time. So you have concept of second level of cache where we talk about query caching, we talk about object caching. JBoss tool is for plugin, yes. And you have to download JBoss server version 5.0. I'll just go here, JBoss 5 download. I'm asking you to download 5 because it's pretty. You can download GA and better is to download CR2. Okay, common release, and GA is for general.